That's someone we've approved years ago. Adam Cadelli. Yeah.
Good evening. Welcome. We have a nice crowd. As always, a video of this meeting is streamed on YouTube and will be also available on Facebook and the village's website. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Clerk Saladino to call the roll.
Trustee Augustine.
Here.
Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee McGee.
Here.
Trustee O'Brien.
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
President Kugler.
Here, and we have a full quorum and a full body. I'd ask Brother Al to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. The center microphone would be perfect. I know you have a booming voice, but that way the people at home can hear too. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty.
Thank you. I'd like to start under the President's report, and the first matter that we have is the public hearing regarding the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 operating and capital improvements budget. As part of the village's annual budgeting process, the village board convenes a public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comment regarding the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating and capital improvement budget. The budgeting process has included the adoption of the property tax levy in December of 2025, a capital projects workshop held on February 23rd, 2026, and a budget workshop held on March 7th, 26. A notice of the public hearing has been posted and published in accordance with the requirements, and a tentative proposed budget was on file and available for inspection at the Village Hall, the Grange Public Library, and the village's website. The public hearing represents the conclusion of a budget development process that has begun in November of 2025. Comments on the village's revenues, expenditures, or fiscal policies are invited during the public hearing process, and as a living document, the budget can be modified up until adoption. At this time, I'd like to invite our village consultant, Anne-Marie Mampy, to provide an overview of the proposed budget. I think. I'm at least inviting you. If you don't have much to add, you can tell us.
Sorry, Mayor, I was not aware that I was going to be giving an overview. So as you mentioned, we went through the entire budget process. It was about a 3.5 to 4 month process. We started with our levy, looked at our capital expenditures, and then put all of our operating expenditures together, working with all the various departments. The full document is in front of the board, and it includes a lot of the background of how we came to the budget, as well as our total spending for the year. There's a capital improvement plan in here, there's personnel information, there's our debt information, and then schedules that actually identify the dollar amounts of the budget. The budget that's being passed allows us to maintain the fund balances that are approved by the board and allow us to continue the spending to support our operations and capital.
Thank you. I appreciate it. At this time, I will open the public hearing regarding the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating and capital improvement budget. All those that wish to provide comments are invited up to the podium to do so. I'd ask that the commentators limit their comments to 5 minutes and also speak again for this purpose on the budget at one time as opposed to coming back and forth. So whoever would like to speak, please join.
Hi, everyone. Al Foreman, 7th Avenue in LaGrange. First, I'd like to thank you all for getting us to this stage of the budget process. I know it's a lot of work. I've shared with you some comments in advance, assuming you didn't have time to digest that, so I'll skate through it as quickly as I can now. My feedback is based on a limited review of the updated budget, and I'm requesting or recommending that the village officials and staff basically treat my presentation as a punch list of items to consider and potential corrections and revisions prior to the final approval next month. Now, I used an Excel process to test the accuracy of the 27 budget, and the process generated several exhibits. And I'll draw your attention first to Exhibit A, which groups similar funds in a fashion as the audited financial statements. Now, the groupings in the financial statements include the primary government funds and fiduciary funds, and those funds are segregated in the audited financials. However, the budget package combines all the funds, and I'm asking that that be reconsidered for two reasons. First, I think it's inconsistent with GAAP, and it also results in overstating amounts due to duplication of items such as property tax revenues used in the pension funds. Now, on Exhibit A, the yellow highlighted area lists my suggested potential corrections, and they can go through further discussion, or you follow up with me if you need clarification, but from my perspective, this is what I shook out. So the first item is $4.62 million of revenue for federal funds on the Lyons Township High School field project. It was in the February capital plan. It's not now. I mean, it may be intentional, but if it is intentional to not put it in, having not received the funds, you've got all the expense in. So I would suggest you either need to heavily footnote that expense item, saying it's contingent on those funds. Otherwise, as presented, you're overstating your deficit by $4.6 million. That's my view of the math. Also, the second item has to do with Army Corps of Engineer sewer lining project. The expense in 27 is the village share of $1.505 million. And from my read of the 26 estimate in the budget plan, it looks like $2 million has already been received from the Army Corps of Engineers. So my perspective says if you've got the $2 million in hand already, next year's expense, I'm thinking, should be shown at a gross level versus a net level. So again, maybe I'm missing something, but just asking you to refocus on that target. The third item has to do with financing expenses in the water fund, which I believe are overstated by $5,000. And the fourth item is financing expenses in the debt fund, which I think is understated by about $57,000. I arrive at those amounts by looking at page 42 in the recent annual financial statements. It's a footnote that includes the schedule of debt, principal, and interest payments. So I'm suggesting you revisit that and make sure that those numbers are aligned. If you do, in fact, change those debt numbers between the debt funds, item 5 would say, please revisit the transfers from the capital fund to the debt fund. All that should be in alignment. The sixth item that I have is from my roll-up in Excel. I believe there's a budget item that didn't roll up into the total of the general fund. The general fund. It's only $11,200, but it's the admin department's operations and contractual expenses. So one little bug there that you might want to revisit. I do feel it's important for me to remind you, if you do in fact change the debt numbers, that you want to revisit the abatement resolutions that were signed in December. Reading those as of today, I draw the same conclusion. They're not aligned with the numbers and the footnotes in the annual report. So that's worth, I think, revisiting it, hopefully a quick exercise. So moving on to Exhibit B. In your package, Exhibit B compares fund balances used in the updated budget with the balances that are in the 2025 annual report. And I've compared the numbers, and in most cases, I can't connect the dots. There could be some explanations, but this is where I would think there's explanations that should be documented in footnotes or bridge between numbers. So I think it warrants further attention. Exhibit C lists page-by-page corrections that I think should be made based on math and presentation format. I would say it's not an exhaustive list. It just happened to be the pages that I focused on. Exhibits D, E, and F, the last three, are combination worksheets of revenues, expenditures, and transfers. And they serve as my audit trail and were created before I crafted the segmented views of primary government view and the fiduciary funds views. All those figures were lifted from your budget templates. So that's how I tested your math. I'll close with three more observations. The number one is the final budget package, I think, as last year, should include a summary of employee compensation and benefits report. It's the same report that's resident on the website for the last several years, so hopefully that's soon to be updated. But that should be posted online, I hope, and also reconciled with total payroll in your budget package. The second point I would make is I think a more thorough review of the now received 2025 audit package should be spent more time looking at numbers from fund balances, revenues, expenses, and transfers from 2025 into your current budget package. That's the foundation that you're building upon. So again, worthy of ticking and tying. And the final point I would make is just when you issue the final budget, it's a cool picture, but you know what? If you have another one, use it or put a different timestamp on the document, because when you look at what's out there today, you see the same first page, and I think it's very confusing. And I don't want anyone else to start running down the road with the outdated version of the budget. So simple timestamp on it, right? So thanks very much. I think you all know how to reach me, and I'm pretty confident in my analysis, but I'd love to talk with you further. And I really hope that you're able to make revisions in the next 3 weeks. I will say last year, I was quite disappointed that no feedback from the public hearing was incorporated in the final document. So my plea is listen to the feedback and question me if necessary, or others, but please respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Form.
Jonathan Robinson, I'm a resident. The first thing is, in that workshop, there was a lot of discussion that the staff salaries don't really show up explicitly explained anywhere where they come to and where they're actually billed out of. Currently, there are 3 full-time employees listed for the parking fund, and the parking fund has a salary of $750,000. I'm assuming we're not paying people $250,000. I'm assuming there's a lot more individuals there. That lack of transparency asks a lot of questions. That payroll numbers are huge, and they're, I would hope, very simple and something we all know what to do with. And so not having those transparent in the budget isn't acceptable, particularly when you did all mention it in the workshops yourself, that should have been updated, but it didn't get changed. The other thing is, I have and will continue to push for recordings of all meetings in this room. This board unanimously approved the recording equipment we have in this room, paid $45,000 for it. And when they did that, they promised to record everything that happens in this room, which would be every single smaller meeting. That hasn't happened. It's been a year and a half since that was done. I'm here at the budget meeting. The problem I've understand, my investigation says that basically the camera equipment we bought, there are 4 people in the conglomerate for the cable. We spent significantly more on our camera system than any of the other ones. What we didn't plan for was, because it is so complex, we have to have an operator, which means there has to be a price. So in order to actually accomplish the goal that was promised to record all these meetings, somebody has to put in the budget to use an operator. And if you don't, you need some other way to do it, whether that's a simpler recording system or whatever that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Hi, Laura West. I just want to echo my comments from a few meetings ago that it's very encouraging to see so many funds allocated towards flood relief in this budget. and even in the revised version. And I just want to make sure you understand the excitement and sense of relief that people all throughout the village feel, knowing that there might be something actually done in the not-too-distant future to fix this great problem that goes throughout the village. The LT Field project is especially important to myself, my family, my neighbors, and we really hope to see that done and help get this budget actually to fruition sooner than later. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. West. All right, seeing no other comments, as a reminder, the budget is scheduled for approval during the April 13th, 2026 Village Board meeting. Moving on, this weekend it felt like spring, at least Saturday. Sunday maybe reminds us that spring in March in LaGrange is spring in March in LaGrange. But LaGrange schools will be on spring break next week. Motorists are urged to be observant for kids during the day when it's normally school time. Obviously, as the weather warms up, we get more bike riders, more pedestrians, and again, we ask that everybody be alert, be cautious, be safe. The village wishes the parents and school children a very enjoyable, fun, and restful break. Keeping with the spring theory, something. Speaking of spring, it's the cleanup. This week will be held the week of April 20th for residents on their regular collection day. Flood Brothers contract requires a separate spring cleanup sticker that should be affixed and put on in collection. It allows for an unlimited number of items to be disposed of. Again, we ask that you put the sticker on the morning of, in case somebody takes one of your belongings with the sticker on it. Then Flood Brothers won't pick up your stuff. It happens every year. So again, please put the sticker on in the morning. You're maybe amazed at what somebody finds as a treasure from your dispersed trash. Again, spring cleanup stickers are available at the same locations where refuse and yard stickers are sold, and we have more information on our website. It being spring, we again would encourage residents to go on our webpage to look to participate in the 50/50 sidewalk program, as well as the 50/50 individual house flooding program. Overhead sewers, check valves, we will pay, the village will pay 50% of the costs with very few requirements for anybody who wants to take a step to protect their homes. Electrical aggregation. It's a program. It was an agreement that the village entered, and the companies select eligible residents of small businesses with an electrical supply price equal to the ComEd rate. Under the program, MC2 manages the accounts that are part of the program, adding or dropping them as they deem necessary. Recently, some eligible residents and small businesses received a letter from MC2 informing them that they will be included in this program. Again, there is no cost to the consumer. The program provides renewable energy certificates designating the village as an EPA green power community. So if you are selected, MC2 will supply the power to Commonwealth Edison. There'll be no change. It won't cost you any money. The power will appear to you as the same. And with that, I'd ask Village Manager Knight to provide a manager's report.
Thank you, President Kugler, and good evening, everyone. The annual comprehensive financial report of the Village of LaGrange for the fiscal year May 1, 2024 to April 30th, 2025 has been prepared by Auditor Sikich LLP for the Village Board's review and acceptance. Sikich LLP has rendered a clean opinion, which indicates that financial statements are prepared fairly in all material aspects in the Village's financial position and results of its operation as of April 30th, 2025. Due to additional work to complete this year's audit, this year's report has been delayed. However, I'd like to recognize and thank everyone for their extraordinary efforts, including those of our consultants, the Sikich team, and village staff completing this year's process so that we can consider the report here tonight. With that, I'd like to invite Director Kellen O'Malley of Sickage up to the podium to begin his presentation.
Welcome. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Knight, and thank you to the village for having me here to present this evening. As part of our audit, we issued 5 reports: the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR, our board communication report, a management letter, a consolidated year-end financial report, and an IMRF allocation report, all as of April 30th, 2025. The ACFR begins on page 231 of the packet, and our opinion begins on page 248. Our opinion is the first section of the financial section. In order to issue an opinion on the financial statements, we follow 2 sets of standards. We follow standards set by the AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. The AICPA sets the standards for the procedures we must perform when conducting our audit, and we follow standards set by GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And GASB sets the rules, the regulations for reporting for local governments such as the village. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the village's financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that we can provide on the financial statements. It's also referred to as a clean opinion. Also in the opinion, you'll note that there is a change in accounting principle. We implemented a new GASB standard this year, which resulted in a restatement in the village's financial statements. On page 252 is an additional opinion that we issued this year over internal control over financial reporting. This opinion is required when state and federal grant expenditures exceed $500,000. There's 2 purposes to the report on this opinion: internal control over financial reporting and a report on compliance and other matters. In regards to internal control over financial reporting, we noted 1 deficiency we considered to be a material weakness, and 2 deficiencies we consider to be a significant deficiency. In regards to compliance and other matters, we noted 1 instance of noncompliance. These findings are included in the accompanying schedule of findings and questions costs. Following those 2 opinions, on page 258 is the start of the management's discussion analysis, or MD&A. MD&A is prepared by management. It's essentially an executive summary, and it provides comparative data. I like to direct readers of the financial statements to the MD&A, as it provides that additional analysis over the financial statements and comparative data. On page 275 is the 274 and 275 is the statement of net position. Looking at the statement of net position, and specifically net position at year end, there was the village had a consolidated an ending net position of about $71.7 million. That's split between governmental activities and business type activities, which business type activities include water, sewer, and parking funds. On page 276 and 277 is the statement of activities. The statement of activities is going to tell you if you're economically better or worse off from the year of operations. The village had a $10.9 million increase in net position and a $471,000 restatement related to the GASB 101 change that I noted. On page 278 is the governmental balance sheet. These governmental funds are presented on a modified accrual basis. They have a short-term focus, which means they don't include long-term liabilities and capital assets that the statement of net position and statement of activities includes. They're split between major and non-major funds. Village reports two major funds, the general fund and the capital projects fund. The general fund had a total fund balance of $19.4 million, of which $14.1 million is unassigned fund balance. And the capital projects fund had a fund balance of $20.2 million. On page 280 is the governmental fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Is essentially an income statement if you're familiar with corporate financial statement terminology. The general fund had revenues exceeding expenditures of $5.9 million. There was transfers out of the general fund of about $3.4 million, resulting in a total increase in net position in the general fund of $2.5 million. The capital projects fund had $4.2 million transferred in and an overall increase in net position of $3.3 million. Page 284 is the proprietary fund financial statements. Again, these are business type activities and they're split between the water fund, the parking fund, the sewer fund, and there's also the internal service fund for equipment replacement. The water and sewer fund had operating incomes for the year, meaning that revenues and operations were sufficient to cover operating expenses, including depreciation. The parking fund had an operating loss of $292,000. There was a transfer in of $150,000 and capital grants of $290,000, resulting in an overall increase in that net position. The net increase in net position across all proprietary funds was an increase of $1.6 million, resulting in the ending net position of about $29.9 million in that schedule. Page 288 is the statement of changes in fiduciary net position. This is the village's police and fire pension funds. There was total additions of $7.7 million. Deductions of $5.1 million, resulting in an ending net position of $42.9 million in those fiduciary funds. Further back in the IFR, I'd like to cover just briefly a couple of the defined benefit pension plans. Page 349 is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund schedule of net pension liability. This is as of December 31st. Every year, IMRF has their valuation done as of December 31st. So as of December 31st, 2024, that plan was approximately 96.8% funded. That's compared to about 96.6% funded in the prior year. And the village reports 73% of that liability from IMRF. A portion of that is allocated to the library. On page 352 of the packet is the schedule of changes in net pension liability and related ratios for the police pension fund. This is as of April 30th. As of April 30th, 2025, there was a net pension liability of $21.3 million. That equates to the plan being about 53.8% funded as of 2025, compared to 52.2% funded in the prior year. And you can see those percentages on the following page of that schedule. On page 354 is the firefighters' pension schedule of net pension liability and related ratios. This is the same schedule for the fire pension fund. Again, as of April 30th, 2025, the net pension liability was $16.4 $5 million. That equates to the plan being about 52.3% funded as of April 30, 2025, compared to 51% funded in the prior year. That concludes the items that I wanted to review as part of the ACFR. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has. I want to again thank you, village staff, and their efforts in working towards completion of this year's audit.
Thank you. We appreciate your efforts and your firm's efforts. Any questions for Mr. O'Malley? Seeing none, we do appreciate you coming out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd ask Clerk Saladino to read the items under the consent agenda, followed by those items under current business.
Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by a single motion and vote because they already have been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, a resolution ratifying a contract for the purchase of electricity for commercial accounts with Dynegy Energy Services, LLC. Item B, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees regular meeting, February 23rd, 2026. Item C, March 23rd, 2026, consolidated voucher. Current business. This agenda item includes consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, resolution acknowledging procedures and responsibilities when working in the state right-of-way. Item B, an ordinance amending ordinance number 024-16 and approving a major amendment to a plan development at 811 through 901 West Hillgrove Avenue. Item C, LaGrange Housing Task Force.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. At this time, I would invite the public to come forward to comment on matters on tonight's agenda. We'll limit those comments to 3 minutes. Please come up. And again, I'm not sure how many are going to talk. If we're going to have several, if you could have the next person up and ready to go, that'd be helpful.
Good evening, President Kugler, members of the board. My name is Peg Moster. I've lived in LaGrange since 1986, both as a homeowner and a renter. I'm also a member of the League of Women Voters of the LaGrange area and co-chair of its housing committee. The League of Women Voters supports affordable housing at the national, state, and local level. In 2020, the LaGrange League reactivated its housing committee and began to investigate and update our knowledge about affordability as it related to the 11 communities we cover in the western suburbs. Our first 2 years were spent researching LaGrange and surrounding towns to determine what, if any, action had been taken to address affordability. The town-specific data came from CMAP publications and other online resources. Additionally, we researched other small towns in the Chicago metropolitan area and surrounding counties for affordable housing language, ordinances, and/or zoning codes, and whether any had established housing commissions. This is information which we have shared with each of you multiple times. The list of towns who have recognized and embraced it as their responsibility to address affordability in meaningful ways continues to grow. Finally, we began to reach out to local village officials to see if we could schedule an appointment to discuss the approach, if any, each was taking on affordable housing. My first meeting with the Village of LaGrange was over 4 years ago, and it was during that meeting that I learned the village had just been awarded grant funding to redo its comprehensive plan. That serendipitous moment determined where our housing committee would direct its efforts. Since then, I've appeared before you on multiple occasions, along with fellow housing committee members, to ask what was the village doing to address affordability issues in LaGrange. We also had one-on-one conversations with each of you on the subject, attended all the public meetings held during the LaGrange Forward Comprehensive Plan project, and provided input and information at every opportunity afforded us. Additionally, we held meetings with members of LaGrange congregations and parishes, met with the ministerium, and worked with 3 local food pantries on a housing needs survey, which confirmed our conclusions as to the percentage of income being spent by participants in housing for themselves and their families. Item C under current business on tonight's agenda is the LaGrange Housing Task Force, with a note stating that it was referred to Trustee Augustine. Trustee Augustine is the co-sponsor of the Housing Task Force proposal, along with Trustees Thompson and McGee. The actual Housing Task Force proposal that was drafted by the League and Trustee Augustine and sent to the board was not actually attached to tonight's agenda. Instead, the LaGrange Forward Comprehensive Plan was attached, along with a cover memo citing Chapter 3 of the plan. The sponsoring trustees provided a 4-page document explaining the need for a task force with a description of the task force scope, composition, and purpose. And including in it, the agenda packet for this meeting would have helped those attending or watching from home to better understand what will be discussed later this evening when this agenda item is discussed. In brief, I want to thank Trustees Augustine, Thompson, and McGee for co-sponsoring this for your consideration. The Housing Task Force proposal before you would fulfill the recommendation from Chapter 3 of the Comprehensive Plan that you approved in November 2024. As described in the plan, a Housing Task Force would conduct a housing needs assessment of various populations, such as empty nesters, young professionals, new families, and those who work in the village, considering the available housing stock and the market conditions. From this assessment, the task force would identify further actions the village can take to support the housing needs of key populations. I want to take a moment here to assure you this is not just a League of Women Voters initiative. As we have met and talked to residents over the years, we have found tremendous interest, concern, and support from village residents. Tonight, there are a very large number of people who have come to this meeting in support of creating a housing task force. We had kind of short notice, so I don't think we were able to get as large a crowd as we would like. But for those who are here who are supporting the proposal, would you raise your hands just to let everyone know? Thank you. And we know from the response we received from residents that there is a large percentage who have been affected by or are aware of the impact affordability has had on seniors who wish to downsize and remain in the village, professionals and young families who grew up here and were educated in LaGrange who cannot afford the price of housing here, as well as people who work in the village to keep us safe, teach our children, or wait on us in the many restaurants in town. The proposal does not ask for or require anything but minimum support from village staff. There are enormous reservoirs of experience, talent, and interest among LaGrange residents who would volunteer their time and knowledge to be engaged in this meaningful endeavor. We have residents from industries and professions such as building developers, architects, landlords, builders, realtors, CEOs, mortgage bankers, people who work for philanthropic institutions, lawyers, accountants, teachers, and so on, along with residents who have devoted their time, talent, and efforts to study and address various social issues. Affordability is a nationally recognized problem. Governor Pritzker, in reaction, introduced the BUILD program, which is the Building Up Illinois Development, during his budget review and State of the State address in February this year. Considering the implications of that legislation, which would have the state mandate municipality zoning codes, and that the village is in the process of seeking a consulting firm to assist in rewriting and modernizing our own village zoning code. But better or more crucial time to launch a task force to look critically at what, if anything, can be done to address housing affordability. I cannot take credit for what I'm about to say. It was sent to me in an email regarding the state of housing nationwide, but reinforces what we were asking you to approve. In a quote, "A thriving community takes care of its own people and provides for the future. That is what makes us stronger. Housing is a fundamental need." Thank you for the time you've allowed me to speak and for your attention. In closing, I will quote movie director Spike Lee's title to his 1989 iconic award-winning masterpiece. It is brief, speaks to the moment we are in, and is do the right thing. The right thing
Thank you.
tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is to approve the Housing Task Force proposal before you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board and fellow LaGrange residents. I am Kurt Volkman. I'm chairperson of the LaGrange Design Review Commission, and I'm in support of creating a housing task force. I'd like to briefly connect three forces that will shape the future of LaGrange: state legislation, federal policy, and our local responsibility to plan wisely. At the state level, the Illinois Build Act is fundamentally about one thing: increasing housing supply. It does this by reducing barriers to what is often called missing middle housing, duplexes, floor flats, small scale, multifamily, and by limiting how restrictive local zoning can be when it prevents housing from being built. By definition, LaGrange has been restrictive. In parallel, legislation around transit-oriented development, or TOD, is removing parking minimums near transit. This is going into effect in June. The state's intent is clear: reduce cost, increase feasibility, encourage housing where infrastructure already exists. We have 2 train stations in town. We have the infrastructure. At a federal level, this is bipartisan. This doesn't happen often. The Build Hubs Act is working its way through policy and will receive a vote this year. It reinforces the direction of prioritizing investment in infrastructure, housing, economic development tied to regional growth and accessibility, again, around train stations and multimodal areas. Taken together, these are not isolated policies. These are signals that change is coming, not to just cities, but to communities like ours. The question before us is not whether LaGrange will change. The question is whether we will guide that change or merely react to what the state and federal government does to us. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not about unchecked growth or losing community character. It's about finding the right kind of housing. Housing that allows young families to enter our community. Our school populations are dwindling. Housing that allows longtime residents to downsize and stay in a place they love. Housing that supports the workforce that keeps our village running. At the same time, we need to acknowledge a reality. Our infrastructure, our sewers, our streets, our public systems have a long-term cost. Those costs don't go away if we stand still. In fact, they grow. And without an increase in households, that burden of cost falls on fewer people. That means higher costs per resident or deferred investment, neither of which are sustainable. Thoughtful, well-placed housing growth is one of the only tools we have to increase our tax and fee base without simply raising rates. Growth does not change the culture of LaGrange. Inactivity will. This is where design and planning matters. We have the ability to shape where growth occurs, near transit, along major corridors. We can define what fits LaGrange instead of leaving that definition to the outside pressures of the state and federal government. We must embrace change, the nature of housing, nature of commerce, and life in general. We can no longer hold 1980 ideas as sacrosanct. They are obsolete. We must move forward because if we don't act proactively, the combination of state and federal policies will increasingly act for us. The opportunity is for us, in front of us, is for us to lead, to align housing with infrastructure, to align growth with community character, and to ensure LaGrange remains not just a great place to live today, but a sustainable, accessible, and a resilient community for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Volkman.
Hello, board members. Harold and I are representing the Community Diversity Group and making this statement to you tonight. Affordable housing is essential to sustaining a vibrant, inclusive, and resilient community. CDG shares concerns articulated by community members in the 2024 LaGrange Forward Comprehensive Plan regarding affordability and supports the proposal of a housing task force to assess housing needs in the village. A housing task force could explore expanding the diversity of housing stock and other strategies to help make housing more affordable. A housing assessment could determine the needs of various populations such as seniors, empty nesters, young professionals, new families, and those who work in the village. Creation of a task force would be the first step in determining what could be accomplished to improve identified deficiencies. Expanding affordable housing opportunities in LaGrange strengthens diversity, broadens inclusion, and ensures that people of varied backgrounds, income, and life stages can live and thrive here. Access to stable housing is closely tied to overall community well-being, supported improved health outcomes, economic mobility, and social cohesion. Data from the Community Memorials Foundation Regional Health and Human Service Housing Dashboard further highlights the need for action. All groups within the 60525 zip code spend more than the recommended 30% of their income on housing. The data shows that Black, Asian, and Hispanic residents spend a slightly greater share of their income, an average of 33.1% compared to 30.8%. According to the study Healthy People 2030, spending a high percentage of household income on housing can create financial hardship, especially for houses with limited incomes. High housing cost burden can make it hard to afford other expenses for healthcare, food, transportation, and savings. This is linked to increased stress, mental health problems, and increased risk of disease. Limited access to affordable housing in LaGrange affects many individuals and families who contribute meaningfully to the vitality of our community and those who may not be able to afford to live here currently. Those include public servants, such as teachers, police officers, firefighters, clergy, village staff, senior citizens who wish to remain in LaGrange near their families, friends, and lifelong support, people who work in LaGrange, such as restaurant staff, retail employees, small business owners, adult children who grew up in LaGrange and hope to return to raise their own family near their parents and extended family, people of color who, along with their families, may have long-standing ties to the community but historically faced barriers to home ownership that limited opportunities to build generational wealth. Individuals with disabilities, including adult children of current residents, who may benefit from supportive housing or group living arrangements. Our community is strengthened by residents and families of diverse religious, racial, cultural, and economic background. Children benefit from growing up and attending school with peers from varied experiences and perspectives, preparing them to live and work in an increasingly interconnected world. A more inclusive housing landscape also supports the local economy. Residents who live here are more likely to spend their time and money locally, strengthening businesses and civic life. Thoughtful increases in housing density can also promote environmental sustainability by supporting walkability and reducing commuting distances. For these reasons, CDG supports policies that encourage a wider range of housing types and price points, sometimes called missing middle income. Potential approaches could include inclusionary housing, requiring a portion of units in new or redeveloped multifamily housing to be set aside as affordable. Adjusted zoning regulations that allow 4- and 5-story residential buildings near transit with more flexible parking requirements. Expanding opportunities for 3- and 4-unit housing, especially in areas with larger lots, where housing can blend in with existing single-family dwellings. Residential parking programs to allow residents of multifamily housing to legally park on neighborhood streets overnight. Legalization of accessible dwelling units, or ADUs, so family members can live independently in units above garages or in small detached dwellings. These examples represent only a starting point. A housing task force could explore additional solutions by studying successful approaches in peer communities. CDG supports the Village Trustees' initiative to create a housing task force in LaGrange to explore housing needs and solutions. We believe that this would be an important first step to explicitly acknowledge this issue and outline strategies to ensure that housing affordability remains part of LaGrange's future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Valenta, 19 South LaGrange Road. I'm not going to take the time to repeat all the good reasons that have been put forth regarding the Housing Task Force. We came here in 1994. We stayed here in 2011 as a family because we recognized and prized the diversity that we found here in LaGrange, where we could encounter people of all walks of life and work with people of differing opinions. And this only comes through the ability to house those people locally and to be a part of the community. So just want to say briefly, I support the idea of the Housing Task Force, and I look forward to the board vote that helps in its creation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Javon Harris. I'm a lifetime resident of LaGrange. I've actually had to move in and out of LaGrange due to affordability. I'm also the Chief Program Officer for Beds Plus. I just wanted to echo some of the statements that were said before us tonight about the Housing Task Force. I personally and professionally have seen the affordability issues just due to the seniors, the young families that we've had to move in and out, the young families we've had to replace due to issues, due to income. Some of the seniors that we've had to move out that have lived here all of their lives could no longer afford to stay. So I just wanted to echo and support the Housing Task Force. I look forward to the activities that they will bring, bringing diversity and housing options. And Beds Plus fully supports them as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening to the board and to members who've come to the board meeting. My statement this evening is made from two perspectives. One as co-president with Barbara Lamb of the League of Women Voters of the LaGrange area, and one as a person who grew up in LaGrange and has lived here for the past 28 years. The LaGrange Area League, in line with leagues of the state of Illinois and the United States, advocates for the right to housing and equal opportunity, regardless of race, gender, or income. This is not a new position for our league, which has advocated for increased access to fair, affordable housing, focusing on support for low and moderate income households since our chapter was founded over 100 years ago. We strongly support the proposal to form a LaGrange Housing Task Force. In recent decades, access to affordable housing has reached a crisis point. This is evident nationwide, but particularly in villages like LaGrange, where land parcels appropriate for development are scarce. 21 years ago, the 2005 LaGrange Comprehensive Plan identified a housing affordability as a need to be addressed. Recently, residents who participated in the LaGrange forward planning process identified housing affordability as a key concern. Education and advocacy on housing affordability has been a key priority of our LaGrange League Housing Committee since 2019. We strongly support the formation of a housing task force comprised of members from across the community, representing all stakeholders, to quantify what, if anything, needs to be done to make it possible for current residents, returning kids who grew up here, those who work here and would like to live here, and downsizing empty nesters and seniors to live in this community. I'd ask your patience here in personalizing the issue, because what we're talking about is the lives of all sorts of people with many connections to the community who are facing the possibility of not being able to live in a place which is home. My mother graduated from LT in 1942. I graduated from LT class of 68. After graduation, I went out to the world and returned in 1997 to raise my daughter here in rental housing. I've taught at DePaul University since 1997. My daughter graduated from LT in 2006. When Meg and I moved to LaGrange, finding an affordable rental unit, that is one which required about a third of my income, was very possible. As one living alone who would really like to retire and thus would have to live on a fixed income, finding affordable housing and that dream of retirement is almost impossible. This is my story, and I have to admit, I'm very grateful, and I'm a relatively privileged person. But there are so many, maybe at least hundreds, if not thousands, of other stories that are personal stories of real people. That's why we really need to establish this housing commission. We can't wait another 21 years to begin this change. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Shilsky. I live at 420 South Edgewood in LaGrange, and you all know me because I've appeared before you several times in the last couple of years, and I've personally spoken with nearly all of you about this issue of housing. I've also witnessed the commotion and the upset that comes with the last few developments that have been proposed here, and listened to the community uproar. When these proposals come, nearly done deals. It is time to be proactive in looking at housing rather than reactive. It's just as important to a community as economic development, as environmental sustainability. Housing is a key component of any community and should be regarded in the same way. A task force would be a first step in moving forward on housing as outlined in the comprehensive plan, and I hope you take this into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Christensen, and I would like to read this letter on behalf of our former village president, Tom Livingston. To the board and village administration team, thank you for your sustained service to the village of LaGrange. I am pleased to support the creation of the LaGrange Housing Task Force. The task force will give the opportunity once again to call upon knowledgeable and committed citizens to enhance the work of elected officials in strengthening our community. I believe citizen-generated policies alongside the market forces we count on will offer a strong foundation for our shared next chapter as neighbors we do not yet know and as village residents. Thank you for your consideration. Tom Livingston, former village president, LaGrange, Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And if there's a task force, hopefully President Livingston will be on it.
Hello, my name is Madonna Walsh. I've been a resident for nearly 10 years here in LaGrange. This is just an impersonal account. I just recently sold my house, and I downsized to an apartment here in LaGrange. I am paying more for the apartment than I did my mortgage. And my concern is that I make a good living, will have a pension, a 401k, hopefully Social Security by the time I retire. I won't be able to afford to live in LaGrange. And by the way, I'm a communications specialist, and part of my job is crisis communications. And by all appearances, LaGrange is in a crisis, a housing crisis, and I'm not seeing enough done to address it, especially considering that this is a topic that has been going around for 21 years. My hope is that the village board will approve this task force, but more so will pay attention to what it recommends and what it says. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Robinson. I'm a resident. I fully support the task force. All the affordability needs to be what those plan developments that you want to drive in here are. But my topic covers another item on the agenda. I'm here to speak on agenda item 6B regarding the requested changes to the plan development at 811 Hillgrove. I'd like to start by directing your attention to the very last line of the executive summary provided in your package. You're being asked to vote on one specific question. Are the changes made to the original plan substantial or not? By definition, substantial means something of considerable importance, size, or worth. Therefore, if you vote to approve the ordinance as proposed tonight, you are formally declaring on the record that these changes to the plans lack importance, lack size, and lack worth. I want to focus on one specific change that caught my attention. This developer is proposing to extend their balconies an additional 13 inches from the face of their exterior walls. The balconies at the rear wall, I'll remind you, extend toward single-family residences. Less than 3 months ago, I asked village staff and the village attorney a nearly identical question regarding the 112 East Burlington project. At that time, we were debating whether a 12-inch reduction in balcony projection truly met the Plan Commission's requirement. I argued it was insufficient, yet I was assured by village staff, the village attorney, and ultimately a final vote by this board that a mere 12 inches was a sufficient consideration, having adequate value to meet the Plan Commission's requirements. I have maintained from the beginning that our residence was not adequately considered by this village. I once told a trustee who characterized me to my face as being a bitter resident that the concessions we were given were less than tokenism and the absolute minimum to possibly consider checking a box. Your vote to approve this ordinance tonight supports my opinions. If a 1 foot difference is a reasonable consideration when a resident asks, it can't be insignificant when a developer asks. The answer to a question should not change based on who is asking the question. As you deliberate, I am very interested to understand how 13 is going to be less than 12.
Thank you.
Good evening, President and Board of Trustees. My name is John Pluto, and I'm a resident of LaGrange. I am here tonight to address the recently released 2025 audit report. While the village has expressed a commitment to transparency, the findings in this report specifically the material weakness and significant deficiencies suggest a breakdown in the basic checks and balances required to protect our tax dollars. First, I want to highlight findings in 2025-001. The auditors identified a material weakness in internal controls. For those listening at home, this is the most serious level of audit finding. It means our internal systems failed to catch significant errors. The report states that the auditors had to assist management in preparing adjusting entries for debt and capital assets. In plain English, the village's books didn't match reality, and the auditors had to fix them. If we cannot rely on our own internal balances to be accurate, we cannot make informed decisions about our budget and our future. Furthermore, finding 2025-002 shows that bank reconciliations are not being performed in a timely manner. This is the municipal equivalent of not balancing a check for months at a time. This delay directly increases the risk of fraud and errors going undetected. Additionally, findings 2025-004 regarding grant expenditure reportings is deeply concerning. The audit notes that supporting documentation for grant spending was unavailable, and the funds from the different grants were mixed into the same accounts. This isn't just a clerical error, it is an instance of noncompliance that puts our future eligibility for state and federal funding at risk. Management has noted they agree with these findings, but agreement is not a solution. Residents deserve a specific public corrective action plan. When will the 15 to 30-day reconciliation rule be implemented? How will we ensure grant documentation is physically secured and separated? And most importantly, how will the board exercise its oversight to ensure that material weaknesses do not become permanent fixtures of our financial reporting? I look forward to seeing a detailed response and a timeline for these corrections in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto. We need to, is somebody else coming up to talk? And again, if anybody else wants to follow her, if you could just line up, that'd be helpful.
Good evening, President and Board of Trustees. My name is Janet Stengel of Taft Law. Our offices are at 111 East Wacker in Chicago. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant for the ordinance amending ordinance number O2416 and approving a major amendment to a planned development at 811 through 901 West Hillgrove Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, 851 West Hillgrove LLC, and we are here tonight to answer any of your questions when this matter comes on the agenda from myself or several representatives of the applicant who are here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board, we need to take a step backwards because I was supposed to ask for a motion to accept the audit report and failed to do so. So I would entertain a motion to accept the audit report.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Trustee Peterson, any discussion regarding accepting the audit report? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
And Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next up, I'd ask for a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
I move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale and Trustee O'Brien. Any discussion regarding that? Trustee Augustine?
President Kukler, as previously stated, I recuse myself from voting on any agenda items related to our village prosecutor.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next up is current business. Under A, we have a resolution acknowledging procedures and responsibilities when working in the state right of way, and that's presented to Trustee McGee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Illinois state statute requires that any person, firm, or corporation wishing to do work on state-maintained rights of way must first obtain a written permit from the Illinois Department of Transportation. This would pertain to LaGrange Road, Ogden Avenue, 47th Street, and portions of East Avenue located within the village of LaGrange. In addition, a surety bond is required with each permit application to ensure that all work is completed in accordance with state specifications and that the right-of-way is properly restored in the case of a municipality where municipal employees are performing the work. IDOT will accept a resolution in lieu of a bond. The same does not apply to private contractors. A resolution would also allow the state to grant the village a verbal permit in emergencies. A separate permit is not required for routine maintenance operations covered by the village's agreement with IDOT. The village agrees to obtain permission before conducting any work in the state right-of-way. Additionally, the village commits to performing all work in accordance with state guidelines, which includes restoring the work area. This resolution, like similar resolutions adopted by the village board in the past, will be in effect for a 2-year period. The staff recommends approval of the proposed resolution acknowledging procedures and responsibility when working in the state right-of-way. And I motion that we accept this proposed resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee McGee and Trustee Gale. Any questions, comments regarding this? Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next up is B, an ordinance number 02416, approving a major amendment to a plan development at 811 through 901 West Hillgrove Avenue, and that's referred to Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, President Kukler. 851 West Hillgrove LLC, the applicant, the owner of the property located at 811 through 901 Hillgrove, has requested a major adjustment to a plan development at 811 901 West Hillgrove, the subject property. Per zoning code section 14511B, major adjustments to an approved plan during the development shall be granted by the village board of trustees. A major adjustment is any adjustment to an approved plan that is not explicitly defined as a minor adjustment in zoning code section 14511A. In June 2024, the village board of trustees approved 02416, an ordinance approving a special use for the plan development, site plan, and design review permit for 811-901 West Hillgrove. The ordinance approved the plans for mixed-use building. The applicant at the time was 817-821 West Hillgrove LLC. In September 2025, 817-821 West Hillgrove LLC transferred all interest to the subject property at 851 West Hillgrove LLC. The applicant has submitted plans for a building permit and proposes plan revisions resulting from the development of the final construction plans. The changes include modifications to the interior floor plans and resulting changes to the windows and balconies, lowering of the rooftop stairwell access and resulting reduced maximum height of the building, changes to the exterior facade, and all other minor related changes. Specific changes to the interior floor plans, including altering the composition of the unit mix, increasing the number of 2-bedroom units from 9 to 12, and decreasing the number of junior 1-bedroom units from 3 to 0. The overall number of units, 31, remain consistent. Facade alterations include the removal of windows on the west elevation and a modification to the placement of windows on other elevations, increasing the first floor windows on the south elevation, modifying the balcony sizes from 12'10" by 4'11" to 14' by 6 foot, and enclosing 8 parking spaces that were previously under a cantilevered portion of the building. None of the proposed changes in any additional modification of the zoning code requirement. In 3 instances, code modifications are slightly reduced as compared to the original approved plan. Attachment 3 to this report illustrates the proposed architectural plans as compared to the approved plans. Staff and the village attorney have prepared the attached ordinance approving the proposed major adjustment. Should the village board find the proposed changes are not in substantial conformity with the approved plans, the applicant may be referred to the Plan Commission for further review at a public hearing. Recommendation: consider the attached ordinance as reflected by the applicant's request. I make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Trustee McGee, any questions, comments regarding this? Yes.
Thank you, President Kukler. And this might be a question for Charity. Can you provide a little more detail on what makes this, the difference between major changes and not, and also, kind of what constitutes an absolute, this goes back to Plan Commission and what kind of project, obviously this one, but what are the reasons that this would not need to go back? Just to kind of help us understand.
Walk you through that. So the code specifically lists certain items that are considered minor adjustments to plan developments during construction. So after approval, but before the building is complete. If it doesn't fall within that specific list, then staff does not have authority to approve it. And it's up to the village board to review the proposed major adjustments and make a determination as to whether those adjustments are in substantial conformity with the original approval, in which case the village board would approve those changes, or if you find that it's not in substantial conformity with the original approval, then it can be remanded back to the Plan Commission, and it essentially goes through the entire public hearing process over again, as it would if it were similar, the same process as if it were new.
Okay.
Trustee Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also a question for Charity. One of the things that stood out to me is the level of, I think this might be in the letter from their council, where they outlined the number of substituted plans. By my count, it was 14 plans got changed or revised. Is that, in your experience, is that typical, like where from one set to another? I get, I work with architects, I get the things change as you design it, but is that a sort of typical amount of changes?
So the one change might need to be reflected on every plan sheet of the architectural plan set and the engineering plan set. So for example, along the east property line, I'm using rough numbers here, the northeast corner of the building was 1.5 feet from that lot line and now is closer to 2 1/4 or something along that line. That has to be reflected on every sheet of every plan set.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Janice, can you come up so I could ask you some questions, I think, on this one? Thank you. And I don't know if the microphone's on or not.
Let's try. Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
First, you guys came in, you purchased the development from the original developer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's why a lot of these changes are being made?
The purpose of most of the changes are to improve the design of the building, enhance the tenant experience. Many of the changes allow for increased amenities for the tenants on the ground floor, increased open space, increased accessibility, especially on the balconies. This is part of the design process as my client was working through construction and building permit approvals and took these opportunities and is coming through this process in order to improve the site overall and the development plans. They do own the property, and this is a part of the process in order to work through those approvals.
And your client, the developers, have experience in development?
Yes. In fact, I'd invite some of my clients to more than welcome to come up and share experience in the development.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Josh Anderson. I am the owner's representative for this property. I'm also senior project development manager for also construction activities. I've been doing this for probably 12 to 15 years now. So in terms of experience, I've got probably multiple ranges. I've done facilities like this more than I can count on my hands at the moment. In terms of experience, I can answer any of your other questions. I've got, again, almost
Now for my big one. Since we're here, it's today. You were so lucky for today. We just heard from all these residents about affordable housing, yet no trustee seems to want to ask. So I will ask, where are we on affordable housing on this project? Where could we be on affordable housing with this project? Where are you on affordable housing with other projects? So where are we as a village? What should we have done? What didn't we do? What can you do?
I mean, I apologize first in advance. I am less involved with our marketing side in that regard, so I apologize in that. We can definitely get some more information, but we tend to try to meet the market rates that are around in this area. We have multiple projects in development that also work with affordable housing groups and all of that. So we get our hands in a lot of the affordable communities and go through that process on various projects that we have going on. On this one specifically, I do apologize. I don't have as much to lend towards that, but we can definitely follow up.
Okay, any more questions for our panel? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no more question, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you and congratulations. We appreciate your efforts. Moving on to C, which is the LaGrange Housing Task Force, and has been referred to Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Kukler. Give me a second to pull up a couple documents. Okay. First, I want to thank everyone who wrote into the board on this matter. We got quite a few emails, and to the many of you who wrote and showed up tonight to share your perspective and your support. Many here, and we've already expressed a great degree of this, but many here are familiar with our recent comprehensive plan, a document drawn up with deep resident input. It helps us understand our village today and how we might want to see ourselves years down the road. It is aspirational, but it helps guide the village board in future decision-making. You may recall that this board voted to include, as comp plans have in the past, a section on community character, which includes information about our buildings, design, planning, and strategy for new housing options, including a note specifically to evaluate the local housing environment to identify opportunities to improve affordability. So this is about our housing, which includes affordable housing. And for those that don't know, Illinois statute requires 10% of our stock to be affordable. It's required of all municipalities. LaGrange is currently in compliance and will hopefully stay that way, but new developments may chip away. It is also our understanding, it is also about our understanding of how our housing stock is balanced and the many types of housing we currently have, regardless of affordability. And as of this year, we have a new additional reason to study this issue based on a pending bill in Springfield known to many as the BUILD Initiative. If this passes in Springfield, we may see a significant change in local zoning. Our council will be presenting the details of this BUILD Initiative to the community via our board meeting in April. But the matter on our agenda tonight is about one singular course of action, and that is whether or not we support the formulation of a task force to create an environment for resident discussion on housing. Tonight's vote does not reflect opinion on the issue. It does not take a perspective. It asks only that we create a task force, one that is filled with a cross-section of residents from different parts of town, a mix of views and understanding of housing. A task force, as opposed to a commission, is a proven vehicle for quantifying the merits of an initiative or proposition without impacting staff time to administer, monitor, provide research, or prepare reports. Such matters will be the responsibility of the task force through a voluntary group of citizens who have either the professional experience or interest in the subject of the task force study. The task force, therefore, will relieve village staff from most, if not all, administrative responsibilities associated with the study. In terms of purposes and goals, well, of course, we'll be reviewing Illinois affordable housing policy. We'd be reviewing the Pritzker BUILD Initiative and zoning reforms related to that. and the practices and results of our peer communities that have been successful in their implementation of housing policy. In doing so, we can evaluate opportunities, priorities, and issues for housing in LaGrange. There is no mandate, as we've proposed anyway, there's no mandate to make a specific recommendation, but to review only the elements identified for study, craft potential and recommend potential recommendations and/or conclusions, and return that report or presentation to the village board for consideration. Last but not least, I'd like to say that the timing of this is right. Not only has this topic been raised on a broad range of occasions recently, from our multiple planned developments in the last 12 months, to the recent South 47th Corridor study, to the recently purchased land on our west end. Housing is the subject of potential new mandates emerging from the BUILD initiative. And it is worthy of discussion, and as many have said, I'd like to see this community come together to study it and to be able to react to it thoughtfully, rather than be blindsided by any of it or to have no opinion whatsoever. And with that, I'd like to recommend, and noting that the language for this ordinance would still need to be worked out with staff, but I'd like to recommend and propose that this board vote in support of creating a resident-led housing task force.
Second.
This I don't think is going to be a motion, because I think it's going to be a direction to staff, but I may be wrong on that.
Sure. At this point, we can start with discussion amongst the board and to provide the direction and it can, because it's just direction to bring back a resolution, or it can simply, be a straw poll. If everyone would like to voice their opinion, it can be done as a vote, but would be to bring something back for a formal adoption.
That was my understanding. Yeah. And so, first up, I'm going to have you speak as the board attorney legally on the issues that you think are relevant.
Sure. So first of all, just as far as the housing task force, this can be done in a number of ways as the board so chooses. Can be done as formally as an ordinance amending a code to create a committee or commission. Can be done by resolution, or simply an ad hoc committee where really the members are appointed to put residents on to study the issues. When we create a committee or a task force in this, really one of the most important recommendations that we have is that we give clear direction and a charge to such a committee or task. I'm saying committee, but it that is not a legal term, but just the group that we put together. As Trustee Augustine indicated, next week my colleague next meeting, my colleague Ben Schuster will be giving a presentation on the BUILD initiative out of Springfield, and this does have a potential to have a great deal of change and impact on zoning and housing locally, which could significantly impact what we would want any task force or committee or commission to study, or recommendations that we would need to make. So we would just, certainly caution the board in when it's taking action to create anything or to provide direction, that just it keeps in mind that this pending state legislation that could have very drastic impact on what this task force would be charged with reviewing or could recommend, that could impact the recommendation that we would implement would need to potentially be changed after, if such legislation is enacted at the state level.
Okay, thank you. I do have some comments, but I don't know if any trustee wants to go first or they want me to go with their comments, so I'll open it up first if anybody wants to talk before me. Trustee Augustine, is that a yes? Okay, thank you. A few things. I attended on Friday the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, their quarterly business meeting. And again, it went from 9 o'clock to noon. And some of the things that we're talking about, the state organizations that came to present, were Engaging Illinois, State of Illinois, Multi-Sector Plan for Aging, talking about housing for seniors. There was also Home Illinois, Illinois' plan to prevent and end homelessness. In the state of Illinois, in the county, there are so many groups that are dedicated to studying housing with professionals. And I have no doubt that LaGrange has professionals that are work in this field and people that are interested in this field. And it's really, to me, what makes the most sense going forward. What does this board want as far as giving some type of clear direction or charge? And I did learn on Friday some pretty amazing statistics as far as I'm concerned. Illinois currently needs 27,147 affordable units. From 2020 through 2024, 495 units were built in the state. It's pretty amazing. In that, again, going back in our time in LaGrange, we went, in previous boards especially, worked hard to make sure that we exceeded that 10%. And we've done that. And I'm very proud of that. And there's been times where people have said we haven't done enough. And that's when I challenged, what community is doing more? Why haven't we, why shouldn't we be recognized as an absolute leader in the western suburbs with 13% affordable housing? I absolutely believe we've done well. I'm very proud of what we did following the 2005 comprehensive plan. The 2005 comprehensive plan wanted, number one, change, diversify the housing stock. Make it easier for people that just weren't interested in single-family housing. And we've done that with a number of projects. A large apartment complex in the Uptown project. The Mason Point being a development with townhouses. And we've done it with other condominiums. And yes, they have been market rate. But we also supported and pretty much led the charge for Beds Plus. We're one of the first communities to have a 20-unit project available for our chronically homeless. These things have all been intertwined into our community wonderfully. It makes LaGrange great. And I have no doubt that we could have a group together. I personally would rather not call it a task force because, again, I'm not sure what we're directing it. I would love today to hear some things from this board, either what we want or what we don't want. I'd like to call it an advisory council. I'd like it to either look at specific housing and give us a direction. Yes, these are things I want. No, these aren't things that I think are appropriate to look at. Or keep it even more general than just housing and say, what do seniors want? What can LaGrange do better to increase their quality of life? What do these new families want? What can we do better to serve their needs? And yes, where can we be affordable? What can we do? But we know the programs. We can Google what programs are available. It's not that we can't figure out what's available. We know that we can change our zoning to allow a very large subsidized housing development. We know that we can have a workforce housing development. We know that we could have a senior housing development. We also know that we can ask developers like Deerfield and Winnetka to contribute money towards a project, if that's in fact what this board wants. We have to understand, what would we do with that money? Would we hope someday to collect enough to get one unit? And then who gets to stay in that unit? There's complications. And when we're asking the developers to contribute towards this fund, they're not going to be able to contribute to other funds, which has been flood relief, going above and beyond what the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District requires of them, using different materials and things like that. It's a balancing position. But to me, that would be a charge. We want this group, this advisory council, to look at what we can do to get developers that are doing XYZ type of development to do. That would be a charge. I am strongly against the build bill, the build act, the build initiative, or whatever euphemism Springfield wants to use after the word build. I don't think it's appropriate for the state to take the zoning power away from our municipality. I don't believe that the zoning should be the same in the North Shore or Waukegan as it is in Chicago, or it is in LaGrange, or it is in Hardin and Pope counties. I Googled what are the most rural counties in Illinois, and I came up Hardin and Pope. They have 10 people per square mile. That zoning should be the same as LaGrange. That zoning should be the same as Chicago. It makes no sense. We as a group should be telling the governor and our legislators we're not in favor of the build initiative. We should not be having a task force to support the build initiative. We should keep our zoning, control of our zoning. When we were doing and moving on different types of affordable housing, we all know building an 8-flat is less expensive than building 8 single-family residents. We don't need a task force to tell us that that's less expensive. We studied that when we were looking at the comprehensive plan. We said we do not want these 4 flats and 8 flats to be replacing single-family residents. I don't need a task force to study it now 6 months later. I still want the single-family houses. There was a call, and the governor's already called for reduced parking. And we heard tonight a group that would like to allow overnight parking. So what's that saying is, they want a large-scale building built along the railroad tracks, a block and a half from my house. And they want that building not to have to provide parking, but to have them park in front of my house. I don't want that. My neighbors don't want that. And I don't think most of the people in LaGrange want people parking in front of their house. That's why I've always advocated, as the governor's reduced parking requirements, for us to say, developer, you have to provide them. We, the village, are not. We're going to keep our overnight restrictions, and we're not allowing your new tenants to park in the garages. You have to figure out your spots. It's the way we as a village can control it. But again, that's a policy issue. The board can come in and say, no, I want these big buildings and I want those tenants parking on our residential streets. That would be a policy argument. Again, I don't think we should have a task force to explore that and come back to us with that. I believe we should give them direction. So again, if it was my choice, the direction would either be, because I'm not aware of, well, let me say this. If some developer came and said, we want to bring a senior housing, a different housing project that had some affordable units, 100% supportive of it. But for what we can control, I would say, let's look at developers. Let's, even if we expanded, I was going to say, let's look at developers and what we can assess them to help with affordable housing like Winnetka and Deerfield. But I'd expand it to say, let's look at developers and what type of projects could be appropriate, whether it be senior housing, workforce housing, and support from our developers, and limit that focus, or expand the focus and make it what is best for our seniors, what is best for our new arrivals, our young families, and our mid-families. I thought to myself, I wouldn't bring this up. I'm in this group. My wife and I have 4 children. They range from age 23 to 30. They all live in areas of the city. And so now it's my wife and I at home, empty nesters. Do we relocate? I have zero interest in relocating and paying more rent than my mortgage, is that one speaker. And And my children, do they come into LaGrange or some other community? I can tell you, if there's somebody offering them tens of thousands of dollars for a down payment, they'll take it. But who's paying that? Really? We want to tax ourselves so that my children can get tens of thousands of dollars for a down payment? Seems a little crazy to me. I don't need a task force to suggest that. So again, my getting back to my point, I would like to either give this group specific directions or expand it. And with that, I'll open it up. Trustee Hodgson.
Okay. Well, interesting. Everybody here tonight, exception of possibly our atypical, or how should we say, you're not our usual legal counsel, but Ben is, and you're familiar with it. But everybody else here tonight is familiar with an email that I sent out with support of Trustee Thompson and McGee about the task force. I'm not going to make people raise their hands whether they read it or not. I'm going to assume everybody read it. Mark, you read it. Great. It just seems like you didn't, though, because we did what you asked. We, myself and ladies from the league, have met with you several times, and in February you asked us to put something in writing. What do we want? And we did, and we sent it out. I got very little response from anybody.
Well, we did try to meet. I mean, you said you were too busy last week. You said Monday would work. I said that'd be great.
Yeah,
never called.
Okay, so yes, technically you reached out to talk on the day, but we've talked many times. So of anyone, I know mostly how you feel.
Okay.
But I did send this to you. There is an organizational structure that we sent as a suggestion and a basis for staff, as we presumed, and we said so in the note, to take a look at, similar to what we did with the welcoming community. I expect there to be changes specific to what people on this board want. But what I'm hopeful is that some of the things you raised can be discussed with this group, whether it's a task force or some other name. People need to understand it. I don't think that most people on this board fully yet understand build, which is why we're going to be talking about it at our next meeting and unpacking it. But a commission or a task force, or whatever we want to call it, a group of citizens focused on those issues can help us understand it and go a little deeper and have the time to do that. I think it will be beneficial to us all. So I think there's only upside to it. I don't see the downside in involving interested people. I think we can suggest the type of mix that we'd like to see, and we push on it. I mean, the build initiative is massive. It is a little bit unnerving. You know, it could change a lot of what we do, but we should understand it. And I would argue that most people, not just in LaGrange, but across Illinois right now, don't even know that it's, you know, heading its way down to Springfield. So it might pass, and we might not have many choices. So we just want to understand it and wrap our heads around it and see what we can do as a village. And I think having the help of a really bright and interested citizenry who would want to come on board and help and discuss this over the next many months would only add to the input that our staff and our board and our legal counsel can provide us. I think it would be a great layer of information and study to have that. So, you know, we have some basis for what we're talking about in terms of how the task force would look and what we're asking to do, and you all have it.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. So, more comments, direction from other trustees.
Okay. I am not quite sure what we're being asked for a decision from us. So if we're taking a straw poll, are we interested, speaking only for myself, am I interested in creating a group of citizens to explore this? I would support that. Do I know what kind of housing ideas I want? I can't answer that at all. And I can't vote on that at all. So I think I'm moving in the right direction. Is that correct from council?
Well,
yeah.
I can answer. I think
okay.
We are asking we haven't got to the straw poll yet, but we are asking to get to the straw poll what you're looking forward to. We're not going to vote today on it, but we're going to send it to staff and hopefully send it with pretty clear parameters for staff to draft the ordinance, if that's where the board wants to go. So the question is, and maybe you were implying you're comfortable with a task force or an advisory council of some name that's very general and just studies housing, which would be what Trustee Augustine is advocating for. I was advocating for either something more particular, dealing with just developers, or very broad, dealing with things other than just housing.
I think I'm going to be agreeing with Trustee Augustine at this time.
That's what I thought you were moving towards. Other trustees with comments? Trustee Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first, I have a couple quick thoughts. One, I wanted to thank everybody who came out and spoke about the issue. It's time out of your days and evenings, so appreciate you taking the time to come and speak on the issue. Also, thank everybody who wrote emails and spent the time, writing emails. And I haven't been able to get to everybody today, but again, thanks for writing. Appreciate that. I also support the creation of some sort of housing task force or commission, or however we want to call it. I do think we should give it a specific task, a specific charge, or at least one of the charges I would like to see included in it is, something. What should we do as a village to incentivize developers to put in place affordable housing? I would like that to be part of whatever we create. Something that specific, I think, is important, is important. But also, I think, I support a commission. But what do I support? Just some questions that came to my mind, like, how many members is it going to have? How are we going to pick those members? Is it just going to be a line out the door, and we just the first 10 through the door? Is it going to have a budget of some kind? One of the things in our comprehensive plan is, for a needs assessment to be done. That doesn't sound like something that a bunch of laymen could put together. It might be something of an expert that's needed. And then also, question for council, does this have to comply with the Open Meetings Act? Is this something that fits within that, or is this outside of that? Those are some of the things I think we need to sort of hash out in the specifics of it. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Trustee Gallen. And I do have those questions written down as we go and figure out what it's going to be. Then we can come back and deal with all of those particulars.
Well, mine's pretty long. No. Yeah, well, a lot of what you were referencing, Trustee Gale, is in the document. So
I disagree.
think okay.
10 to 15 members was a range in the document.
Right.
So should it be 20?
Well, that was what I asked.
Should it be 7?
That was what I asked.
That's why I raised the question.
Okay. Well, what I mean is that the suggestion is here and the basis is here, I think, right?
Well,
we didn't want to define specifically.
But we need to.
Right, and that's why we're talking about it. And what I hope we would do is approve the creation of it so that we could get to the specifics, as we do often between meetings where we engage with staff. I think that's where we would go with that. Or we can keep talking about it tonight, or I can read this if anyone would like to hear more. But I think a lot of what you've suggested, and they're important, is contained as a basis here.
Okay. Again, I'll address the number after we're done talking. Any more comments regarding the makeup? You three are down where the proposers. You want to keep it general. You don't want to make it as general as I want. We need staff to get some direction here on what they're looking at.
Well, we did send over the memo, and we did, and yeah, a group of 10 to 15. That's not that big a variance, Lou. A little bit nitpicky to say.
Don't worry about that right now.
No, but it sounds like we're trying to force this decision tonight. So I think our suggestion was for staff to come back and put together with their input how to make this work for everyone. It was even suggested that, you would be the head person picking the members to be on this. I think focusing it just to developers, with as few developers as we have coming to this town, is an attempt to kill this whole process. And that's just open and honest what I feel about it. I thought that was just a cold shot to kill the process. So we should not just be focused on developers. This process should focus on how the build process could impact this, because if the bill legislation passes as is, there are a lot of properties in this town, mine included, that could be subdeveloped into multiple housing units. And there's nothing the village can do about it because of the size of the lot. So we need to be talking about that. What do we want? How do we work with that? So I think there's a lot of things that this task force has to be working on and taking that into account, but also how do we develop some affordable housing? How do we keep our seniors here? We have seniors leaving town every day because they don't want to live in one of the condos that's available right now. They want something bigger or better. But how do we also have an affordable thing? But I think we just need to develop something. I mean, if we were really working with developers, that property that's on Bluff Avenue would not be vacant today for $900,000. Someone would have developed that and built something there that had affordable housing. But we do not, as a village, push developers to come in here and do stuff. That's the only available land in this town right now that's for sale that could be developed as residential, is that big piece of property on Bluff. So we need to develop this task force to come up with ideas. How do we work with developers? How do we draw developers in here to build stuff? So I think the task force needs to go through.
Okay, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wasn't meaning to kill the bill. I think you've actually argued for both sides. You said you want to study the build. I think the build initiative, if it passes, we won't have much studying to be able to do. Yes, I agree about the development and developers, but that's why I would direct the task force or advisory council to work with developers. That's, to me, where this focus should be, is on the developments and working with how do we incentivize developers. I agree with that part. I'm not sure how me saying I'm against us studying accessory dwelling units. I'm against us studying moving from single family to 4 flats and 8 flats. Those type of things means that I'm somehow trying to kill the initiative. I'm trying to make this initiative work in things that I think could be supported by the board. And again, if the board wants it to be a very general task force, that's fine. If we're done talking about that, if anybody's against it being a general task force, I guess now would be the time to speak up. Otherwise, I'm assuming that the board is supportive of what Trustee Augustine proposes as general task force. If it's the general task force, I'm not married to a specific number. We don't know how many people would be applying. 10 to 15 are fine. The one issue is, if we have 30 to apply, that's great. We can somehow select 10 to 15. But if we don't have enough to apply on that number, we need to have some type of quorum, I think. I don't know if we need I guess this is a legal question. It matters how official we're going to be on this, what the advisory council is going to be. The real kicker is going to be, what's the board's participation on this? Is the board going to want to participate? If more than 2 members of the board want to participate, then it becomes an official board thing. It has to qualify with open meetings. We have to have minutes. We have to have agendas. We have to do all the things that we do for a board meeting. If we don't have that, then it can be more informal. So that's something that the board needs to figure out. The appointment, it's my understanding, again, Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, it is up to me as village president to appoint, and I will do the appointment. So again, I'm flexible on numbers. I'm flexible on whether the board wants to be involved in it, but I will do the appointment based on the people that have come forward and said that they want to be involved in it.
Thank you. And I think that, I've heard you say general task force. It's a housing task force, and we can decide on what the specifics will be after tonight. If we agree that there's a majority of us who want to pursue this with staff.
No, I want to let you finish. So I get it. Right. I was saying two different things. I wanted either specific or much more general. I understand that you're asking for a general task force, a task force to look at all affordable housing options.
Housing in general, affordable housing, and the BUILD initiative. Anything to do with our stock and our visions for where housing goes and what we do. And I think getting ahead of what is in BUILD will be helpful to us all, and residents can help us do that. And we'll learn it along the way with them a little bit. I don't think it needs to be something that the board members would be involved in. I think we will have a lot of people interested in serving on this. So whether it's 10 to 15 or more or less, we can determine that. But I think the more we have, the better. And they can break out, much like you would recall the 2020 task force was under Tom Livingston. There was, more than that, I believe, on that task force. And they broke out into groups. They chose pillars. They studied those issues and they reported back. And it was a wonderful thing for the village. And I think it was really helpful. It was a much wider variety of topics, but I can see it working that way. So if there's more on it, they can take some pieces, study, dive, take a deeper dive on certain issues, come back to the group.
Well, we need to give staff some directive. We can give staff directive of, okay, we've kind of got a consensus on the board to do a task force about affordable housing. I'd like to call it an advisory council because I think the message that it sends is different. Again, I'm not sure the problem that's trying to be solved. I do agree that there's an affordability crisis. It's hard for people to afford houses. Although I'm not aware of anybody who's saying, hey, do something that negatively impacts my equity. I mean, I'm not trying to make LaGrange affordable by having our equity go down, and I'm not suggesting anybody is. But so again, we can either say, okay, let's talk about this again in 2 weeks to narrow down, now that we've heard from people, the size and the parameters, but we then won't be ready with an ordinance because they're not going to know what to prepare. I'm fine with that. Or I'm fine with spending time now, it's getting pretty late, but now to say this is what we want the ordinance to look like. It's kind of up to you.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how to answer that, but I think there's a basis for it written out already. I think that, we can refine that within the next few days with staff and amongst board members. They take another peek at this, add their ideas to it, and then it seems to me something staff could present. It's non-binding. This isn't a recommending board. This isn't the Plan Commission or the ZBA. So I think that if the direction expands or contracts a little bit, or we throw some things their way 2 weeks into it, I think that's great. As we can learn on the go with them. I think this is helping our residents help us understand big issues. Some of which we've wanted to talk about for a while, and some of which we've just learned about in the last month or two, which is the BUILD. So,
okay, is everybody going to be comfortable with? And I guess I will be attending the meeting. So let me start out by saying that I don't understand how we do this without me attending the meeting that's going to occur. Is everybody else comfortable then not attending these meetings? So we're not going to have the Open Meetings Act. Or are you saying, no, I want to attend these meetings and speak, at which point we're going to have a much formal process? Or do you want to decide this in 2 weeks or decide this between now and 2 weeks? I'm just trying to get some direction on that.
I absolutely don't think it should be rushed. I think we've gotten to a great place and we should put it together. And if you feel like the time frame is rushed, let's give it some more time and think it through. There's no due date here. It's just let's put something together that we can agree on that we think is going to be very beneficial for us and for the community.
Well, I do think that would be beneficial, that, again, anybody who's written can write again. They can share their ideas. It's clear that we're going to have a task force and advisory council. It's going to be looking at affordable housing or housing generally. And to be decided on some of the details, but we're working towards that. Is everybody comfortable with that direction?
This comment that I'm not expecting to attend the meetings. So that's just me, but that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. All right. We have that was C on the agenda. Okay, so we do not have a motion tonight. Now we have public comments on matters not on tonight's agenda.
Sorry, President Kugler, we don't have a motion. Can we take a straw poll? It would be good to know that at least there is support. Is that
I thought seven people were supportive of your idea.
Right,
I was fine. I'd prefer to have it called an advisory council, but I'm not going to pout much if you call it some other name.
I don't care what it's called. It was suggested in our comp plan as a task force, which is why I took that name.
So, are you comfortable? I think everybody said move on, work on it in 2 weeks, come back, and let's see where we're at. Let's hear from the residents. Okay. Now we're back to matters not on tonight's agenda.
Hello? There we go. Hi. I won't take up much of your time. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I have written another petition calling for a review.
Could you just introduce yourself? I know the name for the petition, but people at home
My name is Sean Gallivan. I've lived in LaGrange my whole life. I wrote a petition calling for a review of the decision at 112 East Burlington. This isn't a matter of not taking no for an answer. There are legitimate, articulable concerns regarding the procedural compliance and the transparency of this process. This is an attempt at restoring trust in our local offices and ensuring that procedures installed to protect and promote the interest of residents are being fully adhered to. All the materials in the petition, I want to go home. It's 9:30, but yeah, it's all there, and I'm not letting this go. I got a lot on my mind these days. I don't need this shit, so thank you.
Well, we'd rather you not swear, but I would ask one question if I could, Sean. I guess I can't. Okay. Next person up. Who's ever next?
Hello, Mr. President and members of the board. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I figured I would provide an introduction. My name is Michael Bailey. I'm the Local Government Affairs Director for Illinois Realtors. One of my primary duties is to help communities like LaGrange and across Western Cook County and Northwestern Cook County review and implement housing policy that helps avoid unintended consequences. It sounds like you guys have a lot on your mind. So I did just want to, for your reference, I did leave a little bit of a packet with some current market statistics for you. Just something that really stood out. The median sales price for a home in LaGrange, I know that there were some questions regarding that, is $925,000. And there's 15 homes currently for sale in LaGrange. Looking forward to working with you guys on housing policy at some point. I'd be more than happy to give you my card if you guys would like that.
And thank you, Michael, for coming out. We appreciate you and your organization, and hopefully you will be willing to assist us. And I do want to talk to my board. It does raise a point on this advisory council task force. Again, the more casual it is, we can then allow people from outside of the community, perhaps, the director of beds, the director of pillars, the director of the real estate, realtors, things like that, to come in to offer some insights that may be helpful also.
Hi again, Randy Valenta. I want to comment on the decision taken 2 meetings ago, which denied a potential wellness product retail business with associated services to locate in the core commercial district. I was surprised and disappointed by the decision of the board. After attending the February 10th Plan Commission meeting, it seemed that the commission, along with staff here, had done a great job in successfully constructing the necessary amendments to permit a business with certain specific first floor services to operate without opening or expanding that opportunity to other businesses focused in other directions. I didn't sense that that work was fully appreciated by the board because there were a lot of comments about prioritizing other scenarios that, with the proposed changes that were written in, seemed to have little or no chance of occurring. It was also odd to find this board in opposition to a young entrepreneur adding a business in a growing business category in our downtown streetscape, when on the same agenda we continued to work with a similar and successful example, namely watermelon. Let me make clear, that business is great. It's 4 doors down from me. Nina's a fantastic person, and she's a great neighbor too. She's doing really good things. I don't think we could have dreamt of a better outcome from the deliberations many years ago, from all of you, about the concerns of having a play space on our main street. I was particularly concerned about kids in the alley, and developing the special uses or amendments that made it happen. Those deliberations resulted in this board, many of you, voting to move forward and give her business a chance to succeed and contribute to our downtown. And I don't understand how that same vision and willingness to take a chance disappeared when it came to the decision regarding Dr. Alex. I remember a comment in particular talked about the awards that we had won in the past, and not wanting to stray, instead potentially doubling down, implying that maybe we just ought to keep what we were doing in the first place. The Best Places to Live award was given in 2016, and the one for the best downtown was given in 2009. Now, I'm pretty old, and that seems like yesterday to me, but that was 10, 15 years ago. A lot has happened, changes and developments in our society, specifically in the retail commerce since then, very major, as you can all appreciate, and they're here to stay. They'll continue to evolve. The Best Places to Live award was the culmination of tough work that people in your positions began 10 or 15 years before that award, seeing a need for change and breaking with the past, no car dealers downtown, to produce over time the environment that was recognized 10 to 15 years hence. What got us to where we are today won't necessarily get us to where we need to be tomorrow. Steak and Vine is closed. Nixon's still a faint memory. The first floor of the Chase Bank building was envisioned to have mostly food service. It's stalled for the time being. Other restaurant plans that you can see by the butcher paper around town hold promises, but certainly aren't assured of future success. Oh, for sure, we will definitely still have an attractive dining landscape. I'm certainly thankful for that. And we'll benefit from it as a primary downtown feature for years to come, but we cannot let that outweigh our responsibility to look to the future, imagine and develop the downtown that will earn us accolades in meeting needs and desires of future customers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Taylor. I am a LaGrange resident. I live over by LTHS North Campus on Park Road. And I'm taking a real left turn here to what we have been discussing. There's an item in the budget that says $4.6 million for flood remediation under the West Fields. I have some knowledge of people at the athletic fields and people that work at West Fields and that sort of thing. I have a concern that there's not enough talk between LT and the village to make this project really go forward. So I just want to make sure that there is coordination between the two entities and that everything that is discussed goes through those two entities so that it's mutually beneficial for those two entities. I support it completely, but I do have concerns just from my own knowledge about people that use those fields and the athletic department that there may not be enough talking between the village and LT. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Taylor.
Jonathan Robinson, still a resident. Basically, I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone and anyone who supported me with my text amendments after about, 6-8 weeks of not getting any responses. I'm assuming due to the Patches article about a week and a half ago and the responses online and the other things that happened, such as people coming to the Planning Commission and supporting me, I finally did get a conversation with President Kukler. Thank you, but just understand that what we do, what we say does matter, and I appreciate it. We have come to a conformance about the possibilities of moving forward, and it does appear that they will drop those charges for me back down to that $1,500 level as I've asked and move forward with a few of those provisions. So I just want to thank the public for their support. Thank you.
I guess you're welcome. Anyone else? Seeing none. Trustee comments, we are going into closed session. But if anybody wants to, trustee comments before we go, let me know. Seeing none. At this time, the village intends to meet in closed session under Section 2C11 for the purpose of discussing pending or probable litigation, and under Section 2C21 to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Illinois Open Meetings Act. The village board will not reconvene in open session as no formal action will occur following the closed session. May I have a motion and second to enter into closed session?
A motion.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine and Trustee Gale.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
And that motion carries. Thank you.
All right. There is no, yeah, okay.